Hey, Ronnie, we're back. We're live.
We're live and still alive, aren't we?
We are. So,
Again.
are you live then? You're alive.
I think I am. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I am
here.
So we've got no excuse. We better get going. So welcome to our frequent still lives with me.
Quite infrequent now.
It is
We're infrequently alive.
And with Ronnie Lee, of course, who's sat in his dark man cave. By the look of it, we've been trying to get some light.
I've got a little light that's messing them out. So
I think when we put light on you, it hurts too much, doesn't it, Ronnie?
It probably does. I catch fire, you see. Yeah.
So welcome along, everyone. Just want to do a little bit of housekeeping in the sense that, as always, the best interaction, because this is going out to two Facebook channels and my YouTube, but the best interactive chat is always on YouTube, so you can bear that in mind depending which one you want to tune in on. And in terms of commenting all the way through, we never charge for that. We don't do things like super chats and all that. So just comment away, and we'll address your questions or comments as we go. Right. So I'll do a couple of hellos. I think Lynn Sawyer was here first, or maybe she's hiding behind that. So so I've just outed you.
And hi, Lynn. Hi, Mandy as well. Mandy's here. That's good.
Yeah.
And Kate.
Yeah. And there's a couple that we know are missing today, which is a shame, but they'll catch the thing. So in the two Ronnie style, we've got the one Ronnie. We've got a packed show, haven't we, Ronnie?
We've got quite a lot to get through, so we'll probably try and move swiftly through it.
And this is, I suppose we always do political shows, but this is probably the most political one for quite a bit, I would think. So.
In a sense, yes. Yeah, I kind of think so. It's kind of more sort of party political, perhaps, than the others. Yeah. I mean, animal liberation is a very political subject anyway. Veganism, I think, is very political, but this is more like about to do party politics, isn't it? In a sense.
Yeah, and for people tuning in from the States, if you're still allowed to have electricity and stuff over there. We will be making some connections between what's going on in the States and what is a potential, well, in fact, what is going on in Britain, but what would be the potential otherwise, right? So if reform got in, then everything which is already starting to go bad. I mean, that's the point. Is that do you think Starmer is almost like competing now?
Yeah. The trouble is, he's trying to out-reform, and so are the Tories trying to out-reform. Some of the things they came up with at this conference that's, is it going on at the moment? They just had it. They're all trying to be, more right-wing than the other one, aren't they? And Labour are going that way. It's shocking. This Labour government would be absolutely shocking. I knew they wouldn't be much good, but he's actually been worse. Starmer's actually been worse than I expected.
You can't regard Labour as socialists or anything now.
Oh no, they're not socialists at all. No, they're a right-wing party as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I mean, it's really weird. Yeah. So there's Ruth. Yes, you're welcome. We did it just for you, Ruth. So
yeah, hi Ruth. Yeah. So anyway, well, the danger is that of Reform UK actually being elected, winning the next general election, because according to the latest voting survey, this is by YouGov. I mean, there's various organisations do voting surveys. This is by YouGov, and it shows that Reform are on 29%. So they're really quite, well ahead of the rest of the parties in the opinion poll. And since the general election last year, their popularity has risen by almost 15 points. So this is I consider this to be a very worrying development, not just for the humans that inhabit the United Kingdom, but also for our fellow animals that live here.
And how old is it, Ronnie?
How old is this? This is I think this was it's about a week old, a week 10 days old. This
is the last one.
This is quite recent. Yeah. And the main worry really has been to do with Reform leader Nigel Farage's support for hunting, and indeed all country sports, or country blood sports, as we probably prefer to call them. And an example of this is taken on Boxing Day last year, where Farage was at a hunt, and at that hunt he announced that Reform UK now had more members than the Tory party. He announced that actually at the meat of a hunt, and there was a video of him doing so. So that's him. He's a long time supporter of hunting, a long time attender at fox hunting as well.
Is it just fox hunting that he focuses on, or is it everything?
No? Well, it's all of blood sports, because at the and the next slide we've got.
Well, hang on, before we go that, do you think Mandy could be right here? Do you think they've peaked too soon?
I hope so. Yeah, I hope that they'll unravel. I mean certainly, Reform won a lot of seats at the council elections. There were sort of county council elections fairly recently, and Reform won loads of seats. I mean, I think they pretty much took over our county council here in Worcestershire, which was previously run by the Tories. So probably not a lot of difference there. But you see, what's already happening is they're showing their incompetence at running councils. They don't know what they're doing, because these people, they're not the brightest in the world. These people, so they're showing their incompetence. So hopefully that will seep through into the heads of people and lose Reform.
Well, I'm looking on obviously from Ireland, and it looks like they're just scandal after scandal with them as well. So
yeah, there's loads of scandals, and whether that makes much difference for the sort of people that vote for them, I don't know. Hopefully it will.
Well, it hasn't across the Atlantic, has it? So.
No, you see, this is the problem, that whatever it just seems to be that whatever Trump did, that people over there still support him, or a lot of them, and it's just kind of horrendous.
He once famously said that he could go out and shoot somebody and it wouldn't affect his polling.
Well, there was a woman, wasn't there, a Trump supporter, that said even if Trump, raped my daughter, I would still support him because of what he's doing for the USA. There was actually a woman on social media posted that. That's horrendous. How can people think like that? Yeah. It's I saw it on social media. Somebody shared it. It's just, and this is the this one here. That's that's actually from a pro hunt website. It's from Field Sports. Field Sports. Yeah. It's just their nice name for blood sports, isn't it? And they're listing the from 5 to 1 sort of the parties, the sort of main parliamentary parties in England, really, to do in connection with manifestos and their support or lack of it for blood sports. And at number 5, they say languishing at number 5 is the Green Party, which keeps its commitments to ban all blood sports, right? And then as far as they're concerned, the next worst is Labour, who want to ban trail hunting, and then the Lib Dems, then the Tories, and they say straight in at number 1 is Reform, which wants to protect all country sports. So that according to the pro blood sports people, the best party for them is Reform, and the worst party for them is the Green Party. The party that offers the most support for blood sports is Reform. The one that is
And so, are they going to repeal the ban and all that?
Well, I think that would be what would happen. Yeah.
What about things like coursing? Would they?
Yeah. That's that. Well, that's part of the ban, isn't it? Coursing. No, the one thing that the Hunting Act was successful in actually stopping in the UK was organised hare coursing. Like the Waterloo Cup. We used to go up and try and just run the Waterloo Cup near Liverpool, the big kind of main coursing event of the year. And and the various coursing clubs I've been involved in disrupting it years ago when I was involved in Hunt Sabs. All that's gone because it's too obvious. All these people gathering with greyhounds to chase after hares. It's too obvious a thing. They can't. A lot of them have just gone to Ireland. A lot of these characters have gone to Ireland to do it over there and join in over there, of course. But that's the main impact.
There's a coursing group or family in Ireland, and they've got a TikTok account.
Yeah. I think that's why Vinnie Jones went over to Ireland, because it'd be easier for him to kind of carry on killing free living beings in Ireland than it was here, for instance. So that's right. So that shows like we've seen Farage as an individual as a big supporter of hunting, but this shows that the party as a whole a big supporter of blood sports.
And is there any dissent within the party? Do you know that?
No, I've not heard of any. But you see, the danger is that it may not be I don't think it would be the priority of the party of reform to totally legalise hunting. It wouldn't be their priority.
This is the reason why Ronnie's in the dark, Michael, because his AI didn't come out too well.
No, it's a bit. My AI is a bit dodgy.
Yeah. My left eye's a bit dodgy at the
moment. We're no longer still alive, and all this is AI that we programmed, on our deathbeds.
We have a new version. We call it II.
II, yeah.
Oh,
yes.
Yeah.
On
the next slide.
I forgot what was going on about before that.
Did I stop you in mid-flow? Sorry about that.
I was going on about. Oh no, the danger is this may not be a priority. I mean, it wasn't a priority for the Labour Party to ban hunting. Not that hunting has been properly banned anyway, but it wasn't their priority to bring in the Hunting Act. It was brought in through a private members' bill. There's a guy called Mike Foster, who was MP for Worcester, which is just down the road from me.
And he used to go fishing.
He went fishing. This is crazy, isn't it? But he was opposed to hunting, and he brought in a private members' bill to ban hunting, and the government gave his private members' bill their support. And I think the danger with reform is that one of these characters will bring in a private members' bill to totally legalise hunting, and Reform Party will give that private members' bill their support, and that's how it probably would happen. And that's the worry, and it is a really big worry that could easily happen.
Yeah, do you think there's any chance of, you're saying that even Labour and the Tories, of course, are trying to out-reform reform. So, I mean, if they kind of went back on that as well, especially the Tories, then, that's where what Mandy said is that people will see reform as attractive now, then they'll get a bit bored of it and go back to one of the others who in the meantime have gone much more right.
Yeah, I mean, that could happen. I mean, the Tories are, both the Tories and the Labour Party have kind of really declined in popularity. The Tories had lost popularity at the last election, which is why they were so heavily defeated. And since the election, the Labour Party has massively lost popularity because how they performed in office, because they've been atrocious in office. And just, gone totally against, what a lot of people understood that Labour stood for, but they've not really stood for anything decent for a long time. I don't think.
Well, I guess the Tories have got to get themselves a leader that can last longer than the lettuce, I suppose.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you want the next one?
Yes. Well, this is looking at, you see, the Reform UK have got a series of policies that's called Our Contract with You see, and this one is about net zero. They don't like net zero, right? And they want to scrap net zero and related subsidies. They want to scrap the subsidies for renewable energy, fast track licenses for North Sea gas and oil, grant shale gas licenses on test sites for 2 years. Now, shale gas licenses, that would mean fracking. Now, fracking, there's a moratorium on fracking at the moment. Fracking isn't allowed. And Labour has said that they would actually make that actually totally ban fracking. But obviously, Reform have said here they want to bring it back. And they also want to fast track nuclear energy with small modular reactors. That's the other thing they want to do. So it's those, those are the policy to do net zero. Now, there's probably an explanation of what net zero is if people don't really understand it. There's that article from the BBC News. Achieving net zero is the world's key target for fighting climate change, which is already having serious consequences for people and nature around the globe. And of course, in terms of the climate crisis, the consequences for nature and our fellow animals are far, far more serious than they are for humans. It's bad enough for humans, bad enough for humans probably living in poorer parts of the world, bad enough for the humans who are least responsible for it, to be honest. But our fellow animals aren't responsible for it at all. And yet they're the main victims. Think of the billions of other animals killed in free living beings killed in the forest fires, for instance, and there's all sorts of there's depletion of the food resources, all sorts of these things going on because of the climate crisis that are devastating populations of free living beings. So it's horrendous for our fellow animals. And it goes on to say net zero means balancing the amount of planet warming greenhouse gases produced by human activities with the amount being actively removed from the atmosphere. And basically, they're talking about reducing emissions means largely switching away from coal, oil, and gas to cleaner sources like wind and solar power. Now, I mean, that's great. The problem I have with all this net zero thing is the lack of emphasis on animal agriculture. And animal agriculture is a major contributor towards the climate crisis and may well be the number one cause of
would we actually have to do more than net zero, though, Ronnie?
Well, I think it should be more than net zero. I think we should be doing massive, what we need to do primarily is to end animal agriculture and end the fishing industry, because they're huge. According to climate organization Climate Healers, for instance, animal agriculture is 87% responsible for global heating. 87%, and that's not just that's because because of the emissions from it. There's all the methane and stuff like that. Animal agriculture, but it's also because of the land it takes up. And that's land that could be rewilded, could go back to forest, and that would draw a huge amount of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. It's what they call opportunity costs, the lost opportunity that animal agriculture has created for taking carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. And when you take all that into consideration, Climate Healers in their paper they produced on this come to the conclusion that animal agriculture is far more responsible for the climate crisis than the burning of fossil fuels. And so really that should be the priority. It isn't the priority, and I think it isn't the priority because probably a lot of these climate scientists want to stuff themselves with the bodies of our fellow animals, and that's probably why. And they probably think it's something people will never get on board with that, so we won't talk about it, that kind of thing. Yeah, but that is what we've got to do. We've got net zero is important, is vital, and I think we should go far much more than net zero. But what's missing from it is lack of priority given to ending animal agriculture, and also ending the fishing industry. The fishing industry is more responsible for global heating than the whole of aviation. It's often said that that flying in airplanes is, contributes hugely to global heating, but the fishing industry is more responsible for global heating than the whole of aviation, and that's not just because of emissions, but because what happens is the trawling and activities like that destroy vegetation in the sea, which takes carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere.
Yeah, it's quite,
and that's why. So
quite a thing, that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Before we move on, Ronnie, I want to just flash this up. We might come back to it. I don't know, Mandy, but this is quite worrying, Ronnie. I work for an animal rescue charity, and I rescues in the area under Reform Council. They've already started harassing the rescue. One particular council, especially, who is a gamekeeper. Now, the point that I would make about this, and we'll come on to this a little later in the show, is the fact that politics has got a lot more aggressive, and it seems that Britain, in particular, and places like Germany, are really taking the lead from Trump. And Trump has got a very vindictive style of politics. And it seems remarkable to me that it seems to be taking hold in Britain too.
Well, this is obviously political, because really, how would this guy's a gamekeeper? He supports the shooting industry. He's employed by the shooting industry, obviously, right? But how would a rescue affect that guy? How would a rescue directly affect that guy? And so the reason that he'd be doing this is political, because he knows the people who run the rescue would be opposed to what he does. This is political, because that doesn't affect him personally. How would a rescue affect his job? It wouldn't. It's nothing to do with it. But it's just the general politics of it. That's why this is happening.
Yeah, I'd say so. Back to the PowerPoint, Ronnie.
Yeah, and the other thing they were talking about was bringing back shale gas extraction with this fracking, and it's important to be aware of how harmful fracking is to our fellow animals, is to free living beings, and this is an extract from a letter that's published in one of our county local newspapers, and it says in the USA, where fracking is rife, millions of fish and other aquatic animals have been killed through fracking wastewater getting into rivers and streams. Fracking turns natural areas into industrial zones. Thousands of acres of land must be cleared to build fracking sites, and that threatens obviously the livelihood of the animals there because of clearance, and also to increase air and water pollution. A single drilling station can affect many acres, harming birds and nocturnal species that are highly sensitive to disruption, because there's a lot of bright lights used in this, and there's noise and there's traffic and all this. And then the letter ends, unless we say no to fracking, large numbers of wild animals are going to suffer and die through yet another example of the selfishness, arrogance and stupidity of the human species, which I very much like the ending of that. This person's written. But there are obviously certain members of the human species that are far more arrogant, stupid, and selfish than others, and I think that would include Reform UK. And so this is what that means. This is what fracking means for our fellow animals. Why that needs to be. The other thing is about
Observer, Ronnie.
Sorry,
that's a letter.
No, it's in the Evesham Observer. It's a local. It's one of our county towns. It's a local newspaper.
So did you write that? Did you?
I think a member of the I know it's written by Vegan, actually. Yeah, and she was writing in response to something else in there. That I think somebody had written a letter. How I remember, somebody had written a letter opposed to fracking, but from the point of view of humans. And then she wrote and said, "Well, look, but it's, look how bad it is for our fellow animals." I think that's what caused that letter to be written and published. Now, a nuclear power. Now, there's the main objection to nuclear power. Nuclear power stations tend to be, what do we do with the residue, and it's going to be radioactive for years and years and years, and all this kind of thing. But what isn't realized is that the huge number of fishes that are killed by nuclear plants, and this is a scientist from Oxford University, and this is actually in Fish Keeping News, which isn't a publication we particularly agree with, but it's published in Fish Keeping News. And this guy said, Peter Henderson, environmental researcher, said nuclear power plants in Britain kill billions of fish each year.
Yeah, I don't understand this point, Ronnie, because surely, I mean, they draw it in, and chuck it back out again.
No,
you can stop fishers going in.
Yeah, they use cooling systems to draw water from the sea, because a lot of them are coastal, because they can use the sea as water as cooling. It says seawater is pumped in to cool excess heat produced by the nuclear reactors, in the process which large number of fish are sucked into the intake systems and killed.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That surely that can be stopped relatively easy.
Well, possibly so, but that's what's happening. I mean, obviously, how you could restrict the size, but even if you had really tiny, you had like a filter. Yeah. You've got, and elsewhere in this article, it talks about, like the fish fry and the small fish that are killed, and these animals can be very tiny, so they would be sucked through even the tiniest of holes, the really young fishes, and they would still be killed. So that's something that people don't know about, and it's a very good reason for us to not to have these power plants. The threat to fishes.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other one is, and this is interesting. This is an article from US News. It's about birds. We've kind of, we've talked about, fishes and free living beings in general being killed by fracking and nuclear. This is about how many birds are killed by the various, forms of power generation. And it shows that by far the most massive killer of birds is coal, and that's because various reasons, like the disruption caused by the actual mining of coal, the pollution produced, both by the coal power stations, both in the air and in water, the runoff in water, and also a lot of birds run into fly into the stacks, and that happens with nuclear as well. This figure for nuclear at the bottom, that's birds that fly into the stacks of nuclear power stations. That figure there.
When you say stacks, you mean chimneys? Is it
chimneys? Yeah. Big chimneys. Yeah. But by far, the interesting thing is, you're talking about birds, and it shows that that wind and particularly solar, there are far fewer victims in birds killed by these things, and indeed it could be even less than that, because you can do stuff to actually reduce the impact of wind turbines on birds, and to reduce the impact of solar rays on birds as well. With the big solar rays, a lot of birds think it's water, and they'll kind of fly thinking it's water and crash into it. And with the wind turbines, they don't see the turbines fly into them. Well, just by having the blades or one blade a different color, you can mitigate that.
There's I was going to say that apparently German researchers found that doing one a different color works.
Yeah, that's right. It's very, very simple. But the main talking about kills birds, what would you say? By a long way, by massively more than that, is the main reason for the deaths of birds. What is the main and number one cause of bird death in the world?
Traffic.
No.
Okay, not traffic. Well, it's not people nicking eggs like they used to when I was a kid.
No, it's cats. It's cats. It's people letting cats out to free roam and kill. This is why I advocate that cats should be
before you go on there, Ronnie, though, that you're eliminating chickens from this, right?
Yeah, but I'm talking about free living birds.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're talking about chickens, yeah, you're right about chickens, because 70% of birds in the world, and this is by weight, so probably have to be kind of, might be slightly different in terms of numbers, but 70% of birds in the world are chickens kept for human consumption, and mostly they'd be intensively reared chickens. They're 70%. Free living birds, that's only 30% in the world. So this is the extent to which we've kind of altered the balance and on the planet. But the number one cause is cats by a massive margin, and this is why I said that our cats are indoor cats. We've got a run outside where you go out the window and go in it, and they've got climbs and things, and they're getting old now, so not so interested in any of that. But that's it. The devastating effect. And the second cause of bird mortality is windows.
Yeah.
Right. Especially on these big birds. But once again, that can be, as I said, keep cats indoors. That mitigates the harm done to birds by cats, and you can get glass that that's like makes it much less likely. A special type of glass is much less likely that the birds will fly into that glass. So these things we can mitigate these things if we want to. If there's enough, if people cared enough, we could do something about it.
There's a couple of points there, because Donald Watson tells a story about a bird who crashed into his glass conservatory.
Yeah.
But it also kind of indicates how slow evolution is in a way, because you would have thought that birds would have, as it were, copped on to this newfangled stuff called glass,
Well, it's just that they see a reflection in the glass and they think it's just a continuation of the outside world. That's the problem. It's the reflection. So one thing that you can do, really, we have a thing here called Battle of the Curtains in our house, because if you draw the curtains, right, that kind of makes it less likely that the bird will fly into the window, because they see the curtain as a barrier, right? And the other people in the house open the curtains and I'm shutting them. Because of that, because I don't want bird to fly into the window, and I'd rather have it a bit darker and keep the birds safe. So it's just these little things, that can make a big difference. So that's important to see how that stacks up. That yes, birds and other animals, bats as well, can be killed by wind turbines.
Yeah,
but a lot depends on when they're switched on, because bats only come out at a certain time, and it can be mitigated, and they are killed by solar arrays. But the main killers of them are it's coal. It's coal and
So
and oil and gas.
Going back to coal then, and this is a US site, because obviously Trump has said that he wants to go back to coal, right? So is that the same with reform? Are they following Trump in that one as well?
Well, yeah. According to those policies, I think. Well, it's a general right wing thing, isn't it? General right wing thing to be opposed to renewables and to want to devastate the environment. It seems to be the case, doesn't it? I mean, Bolsonaro in Brazil, the destruction that guy. I mean, he's in jail now, isn't he? The destruction he caused to the Amazon, horrendous. Once again, it's the same. They don't give a fuck about the environment.
Yeah. One thing that is apparently true, I don't know whether it's true or not, is that because Trump's analysis of things is very kind of shallow, usually based on what he sees on social media or Fox or whatever. But apparently he doesn't like the fact that a couple of his golf courses, you can see the windmills in the
also where he created those golf courses, a big campaign in Scotland to stop him building a golf course, because it would have destroyed the natural environment and the habitats of free living beings.
Well, he wants them on the coast, doesn't he? And
yeah. There was a big campaign because I remember, I don't know what happened about it, but everyone bought a tiny amount of land, so he'd have had to kind of go through this whole process of buying it off everyone. And I don't know whether that one was actually stopped, because I think he'd already got one in Scotland, and this might have been another one, and that might have been stopped.
He probably needs another cemetery for his wife's.
Just horrendous. Anyway, the next one, there we are. They're very pro-car. Stop the war on drivers. Apparently it's a war on drivers. Is it a war on drivers? It says legislate to ban ULEZ clean air zones and low traffic neighbourhoods. Scrapping net zero means no more bans on petrol and diesel cars, and no legal requirements for manufacturers to sell electric cars. We will keep the speed and we will keep the speed limit low where safety is critical. Otherwise, 20 miles an hour zones will be scrapped. And there we are. The war on drivers, because people have to sort of go a little bit slower than they might want to go. Oh, isn't that terrible? That's a war, is it? A war. Oh dear.
Well, I mean, obviously, this raises the issue that you've talked about for years, Ronnie, which is you tend to think that all cars on all roads should be something like 20. I advocate really strict speed limits. Come on to that later. Now, let's start off with these, the ULEZ, the low emission zones, and several cities have. London's got them. I know Birmingham's got one. All the cities have got them. And there's an article here in Science News. New research from the University of Bath has revealed that Greater London's clean air policies are not only improving the city's environment, but are also delivering significant measurable public health and economic benefits. And it says that there's been a dramatic drop in sick leave in Greater London and improved mental well-being and substantial cost savings since they introduced the low emission zones. Right, there's that one. So that's about the next one. How does air pollution affect animals? This is from the Institute for Environmental Research. I think that IERE stands for. Ronnie, does the low emission zone, was that used to be called the congestion charge or something like that?
No, I think the congestion charge is different. The congestion charge is kind of right in the centre of London. The low emission zones it goes out further. It goes right out to the sort of more or less sort of boundary of London, I think. And that's different. If you've got a vehicle that emits more than a certain amount, you've got to pay. You've got to pay to enter that zone. If you see what I mean. So it's about dirty vehicles, like excluding them, and it seems to be working. There's big conspiracy theories over these things. Big conspiracy theories. So sadly, some vegans subscribe to them as well.
Well, do you have to stop and have the emissions tested or something?
They know from the age of your vehicle. They know from what vehicle, because of course it's all online and everything. It's all recorded. What vehicle you've got and everything, and as soon as that vehicle will get picked up by a camera. This is why some people destroy the cameras on that.
Okay. Right.
The vehicle gets picked up by the camera, so they'll know. So, if you've got a vehicle that emits more than what the amount is that you're not supposed to emit, they'll know that by the age of the vehicle, the make of the vehicle, and that will be picked up on the camera, and then they'll know who you are and all that. That's how it works. But it's not just about humans. This article, it says air pollution significantly impacts animals by compromising their respiratory health, hindering their reproduction success, disrupting their natural habitats, expose them to harmful toxins, ultimately threatening their survival and biodiversity. Basically, and so we're not talking about humans. In fact, it's almost certain that it affects our fellow animals more than it does humans, to be honest. And so
it's kind of obvious, isn't it? This because it's the canary in the coal mine thing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so once again, this is another measure by Reform UK that's going to harm our fellow animals. There we are. And then about the 20 mile an hour speed limit. There was one introduced in Wales, big fuss over it, and there's an article about this, BBC News. The first year of a controversial Welsh speed limit saw around 100 fewer people killed or seriously injured on 20 miles an hour and 30 miles an hour roads.
You wouldn't expect it to be that high, would you?
Well, it's 28%. The number of people hurt fell by 28% compared with the same period the year before, with 10 fewer dead.
Yeah.
So if that's going to have that effect on humans, then it's going to have a similar effect on our fellow animals, isn't it? You know, if you're not going to pass, you're going to be able to, you know, to stop more quickly if there's an animal in the road, for instance, aren't you? You know, and obviously the same applies to humans, applies to our fellow animals as well. So it's obvious that, you know, these speed limits are a good thing, and getting rid of them is going to harm other animals, isn't it? Yeah, and there's an article, an example here, just for a local paper, Sussex World, where villagers are fighting for a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit to save hedgehogs from being run over. You know, so ordinary
they're
people
fighting to get.
They're trying to get one because there's obviously hedgehogs, and they're being run over by people driving too bloody fast. So yeah, you know, so these limits are a good thing. I think it should be much more, to be honest, but I'll probably talk more about that later. Now the next policy, defence. It always makes me laugh when they say defence, because it's like it's not defence really, is it? It's like bombing people and all that. They want to regenerate Britain's defence manufacturing and technology, introduce incentives and tax breaks to boost the UK defence industry, improve equipment, self-sufficient, and manufacture world-class products for export. So basically, they want to increase the arms trade. They want more arms to be produced in Britain to be sold to other countries. That's what they want. Right?
They'll start calling it the UK war industry, won't they?
The UK war industry, right? Now a lot of these arms, these are going to be armaments that involve high explosives, like rockets, bombs, and stuff like that. Right? Okay. Well, you know, let's look at, you know, recent and ongoing example of the devastation that these things have caused to our fellow animals, including ones that have come from this country, of course, because I think we're still arming, well, the UK is still arming Israel, aren't we? Right, there we go. This is an article, and this is from a year ago. So just think how worse the situation is now. From the M&S Research Hub. I'm not quite sure what M&S stands for, but it's not Marks and Spencer's, I don't think. The loss of animal and natural life after war in Gaza, that's after what had happened up until then. Of course, we had another year of it since. Habitats such as coastal wetlands, forest patches, and agricultural lands, vital for the survival of countless species, from birds to small mammals and reptiles. And these landscapes will be devastated, not only directly through bombings, but also indirectly through the pollution of air, soil, and water sources. It talks about the destruction of Gaza's coastal areas, where these were zones for nesting birds and feeding grounds for migratory birds. The coastal ecosystem has been decimated by infrastructure damage and pollution from war activities. And you know, it's horrendous, the death toll of humans in Gaza, you know, including, of course, you know, a very large number of children who of course are responsible for whatever Israel are complaining about. It's little children are the enemies of Israel, aren't they? Of course. Right. Now, what's happening to our fellow animals is even worse. And how some vegans, or people call themselves vegans, can support what Israel is doing, I don't understand. I don't think they have the right to, you know, to call themselves vegan, to be honest. How can it be consistent with you know, with vegan ethics to support
one thing that creates a bit of pushback, Ronnie, and this is an interesting one from a movement point of view, and just in society in general, is the fact that they're always like, well, what about all the other genocides that are going on?
Well, yeah, all the other genocide, but because of the and you know, the vegan position on all these wars should be immediate ceasefire. The same with Ukraine. There's devastation in Ukraine. You know, the bombing of, of Ukraine by Russia, and also the bombing by Ukraine of there's been some attacks inside Russia by Ukraine. All these things are wrong. All these things are wrong because you've got civilians that are the victims. You've got innocent people, you've got children who are the victims of these things. But even more so, the victims of this use of high explosives are our fellow animals. So the vegan position on all these wars, and I know there's a lot of attention on Gaza, but no, it isn't the only one. There's a number of wars going on at the moment where high explosives are used, and the vegan position on these should be immediate ceasefire. Because humans can't get on and they want to kind of attack each other with high explosives. The huge numbers are fellow animals and it's nothing to do with them.
It's always the same as well.
Yeah, it's always the same. They're the victims, and so the vegan position is immediate ceasefire, and you sort it out between you through negotiation. Immediate ceasefire, because what you're not entitled to do is destroy other animals because you can't get along, basically.
Yeah, I did an interview with Anomalia from Northeast Animal Rights about a week ago, and I said there that I don't think we humans have got the right to go to war.
No, we haven't. We don't have the right to go to war. We don't have the right to go to war because of the innocents that are destroyed. All the children, all the people, humans that are innocent. No. And even more so, the number of our fellow animals that are killed in this. No, we don't have a right to go to war. We don't have a right to do these things. It's disgraceful, absolutely appalling. And vegans should be totally opposed to that, have no part in it, and be opposed to warfare, and to be opposed to any production whatsoever of high explosives. None should be produced, because the use of those, and the same with nuclear weapons. Should be totally opposed to that. We should call for the nuclear disarmament of this country and throughout the world, because the main effect of those weapons that could be used, because humans can't get along with one another, will be to destroy our fellow animals. I mean, you look at the number of free living beings that be destroyed by testing nuclear weapons, for instance. Absolutely horrendous. Because there was something in the Animals film. I don't know if any of the viewers, listeners remember the Animals film, that there was something in there about that, wasn't there? Nuclear testing and the animals that were, they even tied animals up, didn't they?
Ark or something, wasn't
it? Yeah. Horrendous. There's another article here, and this is about when they talk about animal wealth. I mean, this is a speciesist term, really, because they're talking about farmed animals here, and about the number of 97% of Gaza's farmed animals have been destroyed by bombing and the consequences of bombing, and this includes 15,000 cows, 60,000 sheep, 10,000 goats, and a massive number as well. It's not mentioned in this article, in this extract. It was elsewhere, and it's a longer article. The number of chickens, there's loads of chicken farms in Gaza. I think thousands of them. Almost all been destroyed, and those chickens would have been destroyed. Now, people might say, "Oh, yeah, but they would have been slaughtered anyway." Yes, they would. All these animals would be slaughtered anyway. But that doesn't mean that it's right to go and blow them up, does it? You know what I mean? And this is another example of how our fellow animals are suffering because of
picking up on your point, because this is the Euromed, so presumably European Mediterranean.
Euromed human rights monitor. Yeah.
But I mean, that's a shockingly speciesist term, isn't it? Animal wealth.
Animal wealth, yeah, it is a speciesist term. Yeah, absolutely. As if these animals are something like a part of the economy and for us to use.
This is why these people need to be educated.
Yeah.
Loads of people on the left are speciesists. Well, loads of people everywhere are speciesists.
Loads of people everywhere are speciesists. Yeah, the vast majority of humans.
We need to educate, these people who are writing.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. But the article does illustrate the death toll. We're talking about death toll of free living beings, also the death toll of so-called domesticated animals in Gaza. It's not just in Gaza; it's in all war zones where high explosives especially are used. It's in all war zones. I mean, it was a survey done into the Gulf War, about number of casualties, and I think humans it was about 60,000. With non-human animals, it was over 1 million were killed in that war, and we did a show on that, and we calculated it was far more than 1 million. That when they said 1 million, it was a really conservative estimate, wasn't it, on the number that was killed? And so this is, this is what's happening. It's just because humans are just so just can't just get on. You just want to, what's the matter? It's crazy. Anyway, so that's why, we should not have an arms trade. This is why the UK should not be supplying these weapons, because the main victims of these weapons will be our fellow animals. And this is another example of, why, Reform UK.
Well, here's a question, though, Ronnie. Is there any evidence at all that Reform are less in the pocket of Israel than Labour are? Do you know that, or is it the same?
I honestly don't know. I really don't know. They haven't got a thing in their policy documents. They haven't got anything about what their policies is regarding Israel and Palestine or anything. So I honestly don't know. Yes. But they're certainly in the pocket of the arms trade, aren't they? And wherever these arms are being supplied, it's going to result in the same thing, isn't it? And vegans have to be totally opposed to the arms trade, especially to the trade in high explosives, weapons that involve high explosives. But
even if you just think about, guns, for example, they've done loads and loads of research.
Well, guns. I mean, most guns are used. Most guns are used to kill our fellow animals. Yeah. And the thing is, it's like if humans are dodgy and not to be trusted, why are they allowed to have guns? You know what I mean? What's going on? Why are they allowed to have guns? You'd think that the most dangerous species in the world, and they're allowed to have guns. What's going on? But there we are. Anyway, I think it's now.
So what's this one? Is this a competition or something, Ronnie?
This is for you now, because there's another aspect of this. I've talked about the policy of I've talked about the policy of Reform UK.
Oh right, so that wasn't meant to be a slide. That was meant.
No, it's not a flyer. That's because that's that was just to tell you that now it's your turn to do all the talking. Yeah, that's quite amusing, actually. You've kept that in.
Okay. Yeah, well, I didn't cotton on to that.
You didn't go. You just put that there.
Yeah.
Anyway, right. Yeah, I spoke about that's there are other policies. Obviously, they got other policies that are nasty, but those are the main things, the ones that impact on our fellow animals. And it's terrible that they would legalise hunting, but in terms of the impact on our fellow animals, the death and suffering caused to the animals, all these things I've just mentioned are actually far more serious, and we result in far more, far more loss of life, for especially for free living beings. And so, it is far, far worse than they might repeal the Hunting Act. Far, far worse than that.
Yeah, and then we want to move on to something which is going to be very relevant to protest, right? So we've got a couple of video clips. We're only going to show a couple of minutes. So this is the first one. This is when Trump is inviting Farage. Some people call him Farage, don't they? Garage Farage instead of Farage. But anyway, I think the sound on this might be a bit low, but we'll see.
Right now, to invite onto the stage the man behind Brexit, and a man who led brilliantly the United Kingdom Independence Party in this fight, and won despite all odds, despite horrible name calling.
I wanted to stop there because that's such an ironic thing for this guy to say.
Name calling, name calling.
I mean, he's the most ableist, sexist, racist orator ever been.
It's pot kettle black, isn't it? really.
Yeah, it's really weird, that one.
Despite so many obstacles. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Nigel Farage.
Farage.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, thank you. Good evening, Mississippi. I come to you from the United Kingdom with a message of hope and a message of optimism. It's a message that says if the little people, if the real people, if the ordinary decent people are prepared to stand up and fight for what they believe in, we can overcome the big banks. We can overcome the multinationals.
Now, this and another bit of...
I mean, coming from somebody who's a multi-millionaire, that does sound rather strange.
We the little people, we the real people.
The little people, I'm a millionaire, I'm a little person.
And I also noticed that the response from Trump on this one is a little bit ambiguous, because he kind of goes into applause in a second or two, but it doesn't right now when he's having to go at banks and everything, because, you know, I suppose Trump has probably had a couple of banks and bankrupted a few as well. But the irony of kind of trying to align yourself with the little people.
Yeah, when he's, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just...
And we did it. We made June the 23rd our Independence Day when we smashed the establishment.
So again, this is where Trump applauds now. But again, the irony, you know, I mean, like Trump comes in order to smash the establishment. He's the biggest establishment that there's ever been.
Exactly. Yeah. And he's a multi-millionaire as well, isn't he? I mean, what's going on? I mean, why do so many people fall for this? What's the matter with them? Why do they fall for this? That this is a rip-off. It's like Brexit. You know, Brexit was all about deregulation, actually. They sold it as a racist thing, didn't they? Or, you know, you might have a Romanian live next door to you if you don't bring in Brexit. But really, the people behind Brexit, that wasn't their main motivation. Their main motivation was deregulation, so business could make more profit. If you can scrap, you know, the necessity of respecting, you know, human rights in the workplace, if you can get rid of environmental regulations, you can make more profit. And that they wanted to get rid of all these regulations that came from Europe. That was the motivation for Brexit. And they sold it on the racist thing because they know like loads of people are racist, so we can sell it on that. But that wasn't the main, as far as I'm concerned, that wasn't the main reason why the people who pushed Brexit wanted to push it.
A couple of grifters. So let's move on to this then. So back onto that screen, I think. And hang on, need to be up here to start this one.
Now, we're discussing the kind of reshaping of politics in this country, and one theme in it is the steadily growing influence of American conservative politics. In Washington this week, American Republicans were being urged to save Britain, just as America did in the Second World War, though this time rather from censorship than Adolf Hitler. Not all Americans obviously agree with this. Nigel Farage was pretty ferociously attacked in Congress by a Democratic Congressman, Jamie Raskin. Let's hear a little of what he had to say.
To the people of UK who think this Putin-loving free speech imposter and Trump sycophant will protect freedom in your country, come on over to America and see what Trump and MAGA are doing to destroy our freedom, kidnap college students off the street, ban books from our libraries, militarize our police and unleash them against our communities, take over our universities, wreck our professional civil service, and turn the government into a money-making machine for Trump and his family. You might think twice before you let Mr. Farage make Britain great again.
And Congressman Raskin joins me now. Welcome to the show, Congressman. It's been suggested over here that there was something unpatriotic for Mr. Farage in what he was doing in your country, talking about Britain being a North Korean-style state and the destruction of free speech. Is that your opinion as well?
Right, we can hold that there, I think. So it's such a weird thing. You know, I mean, Farage goes over to tell the Americans that, you know, Britain is like North Korea. And it's as though at the moment, it's probably always been like this, but I mean, at the moment, it's so blatant that politicians can just lie and lie and lie, and it doesn't matter. At the moment, you've got Trump suggesting that Portland in the US is like a war zone, you know, and then you've got all these videos of people singing in the street and farmers markets and this kind of stuff. But because I said right at the start of the Trump thing that he's going to try and find a way of moving towards martial law, right? And now the troops are on the streets over there, essentially. So what that tends to do is move into this. Let me just stop that. This thing about of all the parties, Farage is gonna bring Trumpian things over because he's got nothing bad to say about Trump, and all this hypocrisy about free speech as well. And now what's happening is that there's a big clampdown on protest, right? And so I'm just wondering about how much of that is going to affect UK politics, because it already is, isn't it? We see with, you know,
it already is. See, what's happened is like the Labour Party have laid the foundations for reform to make the situation even worse. We've had this. Well, it kind of, you know, sort of started with the Tories, didn't they? They brought in, you know, legislation and regulations to curtail protest, didn't they? And the Labour Party have extended that. And there's just been this recent thing about to do with repeated protests, the cumulative effect of repeated protests on people in the area and those that are being kind of so-called targeted by the protests. That's been brought in. That just in itself could well be used against animal rights protesters. It could well be used against hunt saboteurs, because if you're doing a protest that kind of upsets other people, right? I know quite a few, you know, sort of anti-vivisection protests, which are regular, which take place every week outside the same premises, where people shout, you know, and you know, express their feelings about what's happening there. You've got the hunt sabs that are out, you know, all the time, you know, repeatedly, and they're about to be upsetting the hunt people, aren't they?
Yeah, but also, you know, Farage is a massive hunt thing.
Yeah, so you see, the problem is that you see, the framework is already there. You see, the framework is already there. You see, because this has been brought in by Starmer.
By the Sabs, right?
It's mainly been brought in by Starmer to do with the, you know, pro-Palestine protesters, hasn't it? That's been brought in by Starmer. The same way that Palestine Action was prescribed as a so-called terrorist organisation, right? That was done. Then this new thing is mainly because the pro-Palestine, because Starmer's got a thing about that. He's got like a pro-Israel thing, hasn't he? You know.
Well, I think it's to do with money running.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Like most of it is with these people. But you get a character come into power like Farage, who's pro-blood sports, who doesn't give a shit about our fellow animals. Because the other thing that I didn't mention when I was talking about the Reform UK policy, there is nothing in there whatsoever about animal protection. There are no animal protection measures. There are no animal welfare measures whatsoever in their policy. None. The only thing in their policy is stuff that will harm.
Doesn't matter, Ronnie.
No, it's not in there.
I mean, yeah, but you know, your next slide shows it doesn't matter.
No, you see, this is and this is to do, you know, Labour. You know, they've not implemented a single animal welfare pledge, not animal rights or abolition, animal welfare pledge. And these things that they promised, none of that's been brought in. They made the situation worse. Rules protecting chickens have been weakened. And the other way they've done that's really harmful to our fellow animals is to do these loosening these planning regulations. There was something about Rachel Reeves, just it was in the paper today. She allowed this planning application where it was being held up to protect this rare snail. There was some of these little snails, and she said, "Oh no, go ahead, fuck the snails." And they did. There was a thing on the HS2 where they were going to build this tunnel to protect bats. And Labour said, no, fuck the bats, just fucking don't bother with it. You know, these planning things that they don't give a shit, about free living beings. You see, so Labour are shit for the animals as well, to be quite honest.
Well, yeah.
And this is just given an example of that. But because they have these pledges, in any party that has all these pledges of policy in relation to our fellow animals, doesn't mean they'll implement it. But at least if it's in the policy, there's a chance of being implemented. And if someone brings a private member's bill, then there's a chance because that's how most of these things, to protect animals happen, really, because the parties focus on human issues. They're always focused on human issues. But if in their policy they particularly, they support a particular form of animal protection, if one of their MPs brings a private member's bill, then it's very likely that the government will support it, as they did with the Hunting Act, for instance, just about because Tony Blair wanted to renege on it in the end, didn't he? The backbenchers pushed it through. So that's the thing. And if it's not,
it was that
sorry,
question time thing. He got caught out on question time.
Yeah. The bloke was just, and now we've got Tony Blair too, in the shape of Keir Starmer, haven't we?
Tony Blair as well. But I mean, I agree with you that at the moment, Starmer is obviously thinking about these crackdowns on protests in relation to Palestine action.
It's in relation to Palestine, but the thing is, once that's been set in law,
and then
Farage comes in and then says, right, that's already the groundwork is done. Thank you very much, Starmer, for laying the groundwork for me, and now I can use this against the people I don't like.
Yeah. So do you think
the people?
Do you think the hunt saboteurs could be prescribed then, Ronnie?
Yes, I think there is a danger of that. I'm not saying it's certain, but there's a danger of it because the framework's already there. The framework's been put in place for anyone in power to prescribe anyone they want, or for anyone in power to kind of clamp down on any protests they don't like. This is the danger of it.
The framework that we've been talking about 5 minutes ago was this idea about the new thing is if you do repeated, but
there's loads of animal rights protests that are repeated protests.
Yeah, well, the hunt saboteurs, obviously. But what about Camp Beagle?
Well, Camp Beagle could be because they're saying, and there's another thing, if there's a danger that a protest would involve trespass, you see. Well, there's been protests at Camp Beagle that involve trespass because you only have to go next to the gate and you're trespassing, you're on their property. I was at an anti-vivisection demo the other week. Louise trespassed. He blocked the gates. They couldn't, wheelchairs, they couldn't get in. They couldn't get in. They had to close the place for about an hour. Things like that. And then they'll say, well, usually that doesn't happen. But they could say, oh, well, there's been trespass at one of their protests, so you're not allowed to protest outside there.
I think we could probably blame Louise for all this legislation.
Probably blame her for a lot of things. But you see what I mean? This is the danger. You see, the thing is, it's already there. The framework is already there for someone who's even worse than Starmer to use. And I think there's no guarantee at all that Farage won't use it against the hunt sabs. He won't use it against anti-vivisection protesters. He won't use it. There's no guarantee he won't use it against anyone that he doesn't like.
Yeah, well, I mean, that is, again, the pattern. See, what I do is I kind of look at what's happening in the States. And, I mean, the States are in crisis. I mean, we talk about full-blown fascism now. They've got their own concentration camps again. They've got their own Gestapo, which is called ICE. There's talk in the Labour Party, in the Tories, of bringing a British ICE.
I know, because they're trying to out reform the Tories.
Everybody's trying to kind of
who can move furthest to the right out of us. It can be the most, come the closest to fascism out of our two parties. They'll have this little competition.
Well, it's an interesting one. Is this your last slide or not?
No, I've got some now. So what do I see as the hope? Because we've talked about the danger reform, and the Tories are the Tories are terrible as well. And they're terrible for our fellow animals as well.
You're hopeful now, are you, Ronnie?
Right. Labour, we know how terrible Labour are. So where is the hope? Where is the hope for those of us who want to bring about animal liberation and don't want to be, halted in our efforts to do that? Where's the hope? Where's the hope for us? Where's the hope for what we want to do? Is there any hope? And if there is any hope, where is it going to come from? And what do we do? And who do we support? And I think there are kind of two things that we need to do, right? And there's a more kind of immediate thing, a shorter term thing, and a longer term thing. So where is the hope? Next slide. There we are. That's the hope. Zach Polanski's been elected as leader.
Your party political broadcast.
This is my party political broadcast on behalf of the Green Party, because I see them as the as the hope. Together with this new party that Zara Sultana and Jeremy Corbyn hopefully will get together. They seem to be having some disputes, or they have had. If they get together and form some sort of alliance with the Greens, and I think you'll see a lot of Labour Party members and some Labour Party politicians go over to their new party. If we can get this progressive left-wing alliance of these parties, then I think there's hope there. I think there's hope. The popularity of the Green Party is rising. The membership increased tremendously. This guy, Zach Polanski, who's been a vegan for 10 years, and he's vegan for animal rights, right? This guy. And quite a lot of the vegan, the Green Party leadership are vegan. The previous two leaders were both vegan, but he's more, he's kind of more what I'd call an animal rights vegan, if you can use that term. Although all vegans should be animal rights vegans, of course, but that he's kind of more that way. Now he is a sort of kind of charismatic leader. The Greens have lacked somebody like that. The Greens have always had really, really good policies on things, or far better than the other parties. But they've lacked somebody that can perform really well in the media, that kind of comes across strongly. And this is him. I'd urge people, listen to the speech he made at a Green Party conference, for instance. This guy is like, and because of his election, the Green Party membership has increased by, tens of thousands. And so, yeah, to me, I'd urge, all people that are concerned about our fellow ants to support the Green Party. They're to me, they're the main hope we have, or perhaps the only hope we have, together possibly with an alliance with the.
And how strong do you feel about it, Ronnie? Because we all know, don't we, that the nearer these people get to power, the more pressure is put on them. I mean, look at Corbyn. Right.
I know that, but you see, but like we've got to be realistic. There's going to be a general election in just less than 4 years. A political party will win that election. A political party will gain the most seats, or it may be a coalition between political parties, and that is what is going to happen, right? So, if people like us don't have an influence on that, then it's going to be worse than it would be if we did have an influence. It's not going to be perfect. The Green Party aren't perfect. They're not perfect by a long way. But it's just that they're so much better than the others, and so much better for our fellow animals, and so much better for humans as well. Human rights, social justice than the others, you see. So you kind of, if we're not, so that's going to happen. So if we're not part of it, then it's likely to be worse than what it otherwise would have been. Now, there are other things we can do, and I'm going to come on to that as well later. But I mean, I just, let's go through some of the Green Party policies on other animals. And I think that's your next. There's one in your next slide. Some policies. Now, the Green Party, they want to promote a transition to plant-based diets, and lifestyle, using environmentally sustainable products derived from non-animal sources. So basically, this idea of plant-based future that's being pushed all over the place. The Green Party are fully on board with that. They ban all animal experiments and research which harms animals, and that includes the animals being killed. So basically, they abolish vivisection. They're opposed to all blood sports. They ban all blood sports. Ban greyhound racing. And they would
paper lanterns and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's to do with animals. I mean, these things, paper lanterns and balloons and fireworks, horrendous. We all hate fireworks, and anyone that cares about our fellow animals fucking hates fireworks. I fucking hate them, especially the noisy. If someone wants to light a sparkle, that's all right. But,
Ronnie, I was saying in that recent interview I mentioned that I used to love fireworks, and I never thought about it.
I did, but I fucking hate them now. But you can get ones that are quiet. There's ones ISPCA approved that are quiet, and the Greens say that they restrict fireworks sales and use to council-approved and licensed displays, and that they use only quiet fireworks with a maximum peak noise intensity of 70 decibels, which I don't know what that is, but I think that's pretty quiet. So that would be another thing that would help our fellow animals. Now, on this thing about the pro car thing of Reform UK, the Green Party would introduce 20-mile-an-hour limit through built-up areas, including villages. Now, we already see 20 miles an hour limits, and a lot of them have been put there by Green, where it's a Green Party run council. In rural areas, apart from trunk roads, the speed limit be 40 miles an hour, and on major roads outside of built-up areas be 55. And the long-term aim is to reduce the need for people and goods to travel by a new approach to planning that will place work, living, retail, and leisure facilities close together, so people don't have to travel so far for necessities. So that that reduces the use of cars. I mean, I'd go much stronger on this. I'd have 30 miles an hour everywhere and 20 miles an hour on country lanes and built-up areas. That's what I'd have if it was up to me. But this is a big move in the right direction, and totally contrasting with this the pro car policy of Reform UK. The next one is to do with all this stuff about net zero. The UK should target eliminating all carbon dioxide emissions within 10 years on a consumption basis. So I think that's going further than net zero. And they want to reduce the UK's production and consumption greenhouse gas emissions as quickly as possible. And they phase out nuclear power, coal, and incineration of waste, because incineration of waste is horrendous for carbon emissions as well. And supports the ending of all subsidies to arms exports and closing the government's arms export agency. So once again, that no arms exports from the UK, the direct opposite of reform. So there we are. So there's that's just a few of their policies. They've got lots of very good policies. I used to be involved in policy making on animal protection issues with the Green Party some years ago, and I think some of them might be something I was involved in. Anyway, so to me, the Green Party offer hope, because what's happened here is we for years and years and years in the UK, we had a very centrist policy, centrist politics, whether it was the Tory or the Labour. One would be centre right and the other would be centre left, and there weren't a lot of difference between them for years and years. now you've got to change. You've got you've got far right now, and far left, or parties that are much further to the left. You've got those coming to the fore, and the centre sort of collapsing.
Who would you call far left, Ronnie?
Well, the Green Party. In terms of like being far to the left, being much more to the left of the Labour Party. Yeah, their policies are left wing. I haven't shown any policies on social justice here, but those policies are very left wing policies. Very much for social justice. And public ownership of stuff. Which is really important. The major utilities and stuff like that. The Green Party are for that. And taxing the rich. Taxing the rich, which is vitally important if we're going to pay for welfare and pay for what's needed to be done to protect the vulnerable as well. These top earners, they have to be taxed. That's got to be done. And Green Party all for that.
It seems to me that things are a bit more. There's more of an imperative now. It's a little bit more urgent because obviously, kind of animal groups, to use that phrase, would always focus on what's going to happen in relation to animal welfare, this kind of stuff. Animal rights never comes into politics that much. But now it seems to be that there is a genuine threat, or at least a potential of a genuine threat, that the animal movement might not be able to function too well.
Yeah, I think this is a real worry. I mean, how far that would go. I mean, certainly in terms of the side of the animal movement that's involved in protest, I think there is a real danger of that being shut down.
But you also said, Ronnie, recently that the establishment, as it were, I mean, we can almost think back to the LF here, but the establishment doesn't see us as a threat now. So they're not really that bothered about us.
Well, the thing is that I don't think the establishment sort of sees veganism as a threat, but you see it depends on.
So they wouldn't stop.
If you've got somebody like Farage in control, and you've got somebody like Reform UK in control, right? That have got these particular things that they're keen on, like blood sports, for instance, where they see people trying to disrupt that, where they see people trying to protest against that. The powers are already in place. The structure is already in place for them to prescribe those organisations, or for them to ban those protests, or for them to say, to just say, well, right, hunt sabotage is illegal. You'll be arrested. We'll totally legalise hunting. If you try and stop it, you're committing an offence. I can see that easily happening under reform. And the same with protests outside. It's like Camp Beagle is only there because of the makeup of the county council in Cambridgeshire, because it's run by the Lib Dems basically, and the Lib Dems are obviously quite sympathetic to the protest, because the Highways Agency, which controls like the grass verge and all that there where the camp is, comes under the county council. Now at the last county council election, Reform won loads of seats in Cambridge, but Cambridgeshire, thankfully they didn't win enough to control the council. Now, had they taken control of the council, I don't think Camp Beagle would be there now. I think they'd have got rid of it.
No, but does that imply then that local politics are in a way more
local politics and things like that? Yeah, local politics, because that's a local
is
issue.
It more important than national politics in that sense, or is it both?
It's both. It's both. I mean, the powers of local authorities are really quite limited in terms of things, but certainly it's just in that case because the sort of Highways Agency kind of owns the grass verge, and the Highways Agency comes under the county council. That's why it's important who runs the county council. If someone's going to set up a protest camp, as to whether that will be allowed to stay there or not.
Yeah,
and had that camp been set up in some other counties, it would not. If that camp was set up where I am in Worcestershire, it wouldn't be there now. The Tories that ruled the council would have got rid of it. Would have said, you're not allowed to be here on this land. They're just fortunate in the makeup of their county council in Cambridgeshire, Camp Beagle, that they're allowed to stay there.
I think where I fall on this is the fact that I tend to think of local politics as more akin to the grassroots, and I don't really trust national.
Well, it kind of is, but the powers are local. At a local level, what local politicians can do is really quite limited.
Yeah, but it's not.
And it's to do with things like speed limits. This speed limits. If you wanted to kind of impose speed limits, that once again is down to that's down to the county councils to do that. That's a local authority thing. Stuff like that. But it's a major policy, and a major policy things like what I've been talking about here. That's to do with central government. Central government. So
the Greens are not going to get in, are they? Really?
Well, we don't know, you see, because things are changing so rapidly. Support for the Greens are, rapidly increasing, and the support for Labour is declining, and then you've got the prospect of like this new party coming along. It's called Your Party at the moment. I think the name will probably change. That's been run by Jeremy Corbyn and Zara Sultana, who are two ex-Labour MPs that left the Labour Party. Because they're far more left than Labour. If that gains traction, I think in an alliance between those and the Greens could gain huge support. Look how quickly Reform gained popularity. They didn't exist a couple of years ago. They didn't exist. Right?
No, but
UKIP
forerunners did, though. I mean, we go back to Brexit.
Yeah, UKIP did, but then following Brexit, UKIP just went into decline because the Tories kind of sort of became UKIP, adopted their policies, and we had Brexit and all of that. And the Tories moved further to the right, so that took a lot of support from UKIP.
The last point about Trump from me is that Trump is now talking about destroying the Democrats. He wants to either put them in prison. He wants to even deport them.
And the Democrats, I mean, it's not as if they're left wing, is it?
No, but he's calling them that in the same way.
They're not. Yeah. I mean, there's some that are kind of more to the left, like Bernie Sanders.
Yeah, but the anti-intersectionality people will call Labour left wing. And
I mean, it depends on your standpoint. If you're far right, then you probably will see Labour as left wing. But
I mean, you remember this, Ronnie? It wasn't that long ago that somebody said that I was far too left wing to be a vegan. So when things change like that,
you can't.
So, I mean, could there be a possibility of even the Greens being prescribed by Farage?
Well, if Trump wants to kind of get rid of the Democrats, and Farage wants to copy Trump, and they gain power with a big majority, then who knows? Yeah. Who knows? It's going to be open. It'll be open season, won't it? You'll be able to do just as Trump's done whatever he wanted to do. Then, that's. There is a danger of that. There is a risk of that. And this is why we have to be aware of it. And we have to do what we can to stop that. And like I was saying just now, that there's been this huge rise of support for reform. If there's been this huge rise of support for reform from people that are kind of on the right, then equally there can be a huge increase in support for the Green Party from people on the left. If people see that Labour are no good anymore, for instance, the Lib Dems aren't left wing enough. If they start thinking that, then I can see support for the Greens, really increasing and then becoming a real, real political force. And that's why I say that we, and basically, what when it comes to election time, we were talking about election time, the election which will be in 2029. What can we do practically? And I think the main thing is that that Reform UK get defeated in the constituencies. So to limit their numbers of members of parliament. So what I'd like to see in every constituency, I'd like to see a progressive candidate standing against Reform UK that we can all support as vegans, and that we can campaign for that person. I'm not saying that, necessarily be put all our energy into campaigning, but the type of thing I would do is maybe deliver leaflets and that sort of stuff to support them, to try to defeat the defeat.
In our show notes, Ronnie, you said we might have to end on this, but you said that on a deeper level, the antidote to reform is vegan.
Vegan outreach, and the reason for that
also inreach, right? So can you expand?
Well, yeah, that's right. Because, for instance, we've got to look at a deeper level, why is Donald Trump president of the USA? Why is there so much support for Reform UK? Why have we got a terrible prime minister elected in Starmer? Well, they didn't come out of a spaceship and kind of parachute down to earth and say, right, we're going to take charge of these particular states, these particular nations. They were elected. Ordinary people voted for them. Huge numbers of North American citizens, USA.
There's a massive propaganda machine.
Yeah, propaganda machine. Right?
From Israel. I mean, what about Musk? I mean,
exactly, yeah. But you see, so therefore, unless we change how a large number of ordinary people think, how they see the world, for instance, unless we change their views, it's going to happen time and time again, because those people are only there because of ordinary people, because of the views, the opinions, the attitudes of ordinary people, right? And so unless we change the mindset of a large number of ordinary people, it doesn't have to be a majority, it has to be a large minority.
It is true, Ronnie, that the right love the ordinary people because they believe that the ordinary people can be manipulated easily.
Yeah, well, yes, and I think yes. I mean, I think this is humans in general.
Churches, in Germany,
yeah,
but yeah.
The humans are most humans are highly vulnerable to manipulation.
Yeah, so higher education is under attack in the States.
Yeah. That's why
libraries, museums.
They don't want people to be educated, because if people are educated, they think, "Hang on a minute, I'm not supporting this guy," and that's why
we've had warnings about that for hundreds of years.
Yeah. But you see, where we failed is, where we've failed is to educate ordinary people, because maybe some value in protests and stuff like that, but to be honest, what matters is where people put their cross on a piece of paper. That's what matters. That determines who's going to run the show, right? And unless you educate people, they're going to put that cross in against some real bad character.
That's what I'm saying. Given the fact that the right believe that, say, the ordinary person, I don't particularly like to use that phrase, can be educated or stimulated to
well, equally they can be.
Migrants are the real problem. The billionaires are not the problem, even though they are.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there's a massive propaganda.
Yeah, there is, but we've got to counter that with our own information. And the thing is, there's loads of us. You see, this is the problem. And what education do we give to people? We want people to be opposed to exploitation. We want people to be opposed to oppression, don't we, across the board? And starting with what happens to our fellow animals, because that's massive. I mean, one of the problems with all these political parties and with the Greens as well is Zach Polanski made a really good speech at the Green Party conference. There was nothing in it about animal liberation, nothing in it about measures to protect their fellow animals, and yet that is the most serious problem. I did a bit of research, and I worked out that every second in the world, fewer than 5 humans die. fewer than 5 humans die. And that's from all causes. That's not just from being killed. That is from all causes. 5 humans die. In the same time, 50,000 of our fellow animals are killed, and that's just for the food industry. So for every human that dies, at the very minimum, 10,000 of our fellow animals are killed by humans, and that is the extent of the problem. And this is why animal liberation must be the most pressing issue at all. But where do you see it on any of the speeches by any politicians, even from the Green Party? You don't. So, yeah, but and so we have to.
Defeating your own argument there, Ronnie. I mean,
yeah. No, I'm not, because it's a question of what choices we have. If we had an animal liberationist party standing at the election, we could all get behind them and vote for them and all that. But there isn't. You know, we've got none of these parties are perfect, but we've got to choose the one that's most likely to help us.
If you gave a keynote speech at a conference about plant-based diets and all that, the audience would walk out on him, wouldn't they?
I'm not sure they would, but that wasn't the. I mean, he campaigned for plant-based diets to be the default option in London. Zach Polanski did, and came up against whoever's the mayor of London, what's his name, the Labour guy, who disagreed with him, and he had a ding-dong with him about it. So he's very on the ball with that. It's just that it's not given priority. You can have all these brilliant policies in relation to our fellow animals, but what matters is the priority. But you see, what's good is if you had the Green Party in power, right? They may not initiate legislation to protect other animals. They may not, all these things about we're going to kind of end animal experiments and all that. That won't be top of the agenda. It'll all be human issues. But if one of their MPs brings a private member's bill to say, I'm bringing a private member's bill to end all animal experiments, and the party says, well, that's our policy, we'll support you, then it would get through. If you see what I mean, that's how we do it. That's how we get these measures through. But you've got to have the right sort of government with those policies in place in order to do it. If you see what I mean, and that's why
you said that's already in their policy or manifesto.
It's already in their policy, right? But you see, that doesn't mean that they're going to give it priority. If they become the government and they're bringing in legislation, then they can only bring in so much legislation. It's only so much time. So they're obviously going to focus on human issues. They're going to focus on, right, okay, we're going to nationalise, the rail industry. We're going to nationalise the power. We're going to nationalise the water. Bring it into public ownership. We're going to tax the rich. That's what they'll start off doing. That's what they'll start off doing. The human things, and that's great. But the animal things won't be anywhere in priority. But if one of their MPs brings a private member's bill and says, right, I'm bringing a private member's bill to end animal experiments, because that's in the Green Party policy, they'll support that, and that'll get through. The same thing as the Hunting Act. That's how that got through.
Usually the case, though, isn't it, that a private member's bill needs support from the centre, from.
It depends. It all depends on the makeup of because it would have to go through by a majority. But you see, if they would, they have to go through by a majority, and it depends on the makeup of the government and stuff like that. But that's how it would happen. That's how you'd get it through, even though it wasn't the actual the priority of the party itself to bring that legislation. That's really, I think, how a lot of in the legislation that's been sort of pro-animal. I mean, we've had hardly any legislation to protect our fellow animals from governments all down the years. We've had, and what we've had has been very weak, like the Hunting Act. But but that's because there's not enough. This is because vegan education is so important. So you've got to change the mindset of a large number of ordinary people. And so that's done through education. And this is why vegan education is vitally important, to educate people to be vegan. And all vegans need to get on board with this. And the problem is that so few vegans are involved in outreach, involved in campaigning for veganism. No. And there's a lot of vegans involved in other things and doing other really good things for animals. But I'd urge them, I'd say, as part of what you're doing, include veganism, include promoting veganism, have something on your website about it, have something in, what you give out to people or whatever as part of that, educating people to become vegan and about the principles of veganism.
Okay, so can we regard that as your closing statement then?
Yeah, I think that's what we've got to do, because unless we change, if we want animal liberation, we're never going to get it while the vast majority of people don't believe in it, are we? How's that going to happen when the vast majority of people determine who's in government and who's going to bring in those measures, or even, the danger of having governments would make things worse for our fellow animals, as Reform UK undoubtedly would, you see. So this is why on a deeper level, I'd say on a more immediate level, support the Green Party at the next election, support whichever candidate. It could be somebody from the Green Party, it could be possibly a Lib Dem or whatever. Whoever in your local area is most likely to defeat reform, support them, right? And then at a deeper level, promote veganism, so we can have this more fundamental change in society, because without that, we're not going to achieve animal liberation.
Right. And on that note, thank you for your company, Ronnie, over the last 100 minutes. It's not been as terrible as usual, so that's quite good.
I think we've done quite well to do it in 100 minutes, because there's a lot of stuff to get through, wasn't there, really? But there we are. Well, hopefully that will make it. We will have made a small contribution here to the stopping reform from becoming the
well, things are moving so quick that we might have to come back, and of course we will do that, Ronnie, won't we? If
well, we're still alive and we haven't been round